Now, how much safer do you feel when you see police officers on the streets? The new Chief Inspector of Constabulary, Andy Cook, has said that police officers need to be much more visible in their communities and focus on putting doors in to catch people if they want to win back the trust of the public.
Well, his comments come at a time when policing in England and Wales is under more scrutiny than ever, following, of course, a series of high-profile criminal cases involving police officers and concerns about how the forces are dealing with issues affecting women and minorities. Well, let's speak to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley for his thoughts on all this. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Lovely to see you. Can we talk about this phrase, first of all, putting doors in to catch people? It sounds like police speak. Is that referring to knocking doors down and dragging people from their beds and the like?
It most certainly is, and it gives me enormous pleasure to be here discussing a good news policing story.
Yeah.
It makes a refreshing difference. Andy Cook, the Chief Inspector of Constabulary of the police, is a career detective, or he was until he became Chief Constable of Merseyside Police. He knows a lot about kicking in doors, and he knows a lot about investigating burglaries, because he's also called for every burglary victim to get a visit from a police officer soon after that crime is committed. This is just great news and could be perhaps the start of a revolution in terms of reinventing the police wheel.
Have you kicked some doors in yourself?
Many, many doors.
It sounds like a little bit of you enjoyed it in a way.
Oh, we loved it. It's what we lived for as police officers, to get up before anybody else was awake, to have a briefing at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, to be smashing those doors in, pointing a gun at the criminal's head and saying, "Don't move a muscle." And that's quite a wake-up
Sounds
for
like
them.
the Sweeney.
There was large elements of that. I was there being a detective during the time when Sweeney was on the television, as was Mr. Cook. He joined the police in 1985. He knows about what needs to be done, and his comments about neighbourhood policing being crucial and him wanting to see an emphasis on that, again, is such great news, because neighbourhood cops who really engage with the community that they serve will return to the station at the end of a shift awash with tea and awash with information.
Awash with tea. Interesting point you make. Last time I saw any bobbies in my little local community, they were getting coffee and sitting at the cafe. And I don't know if the statistics agree with this idea that more bobbies on the beat, more police visibility, lower crime. Is there a correlation, do you think, or does it just make people feel safer?
It makes people feel safer.
But does it actually make them safer?
Well, it's very difficult to measure, you see, because that's what target-driven policing and why it was so destructive. Because a neighbourhood police officer might go out and spend their entire shift talking to people, finding things out that certain people don't want them to know, engaging with that community, reassuring them. So when they return to the police station and a supervising officer might say, "Well, how many people have you arrested today?" or "How many crimes have you prevented?" you simply cannot answer how many crimes you prevented, because you don't know. But you should be able to say, "Well, I found out this, that and the other, and as a consequence, investigations are going to be moved forward and criminals are going to get caught."
Aside from reinforced doors and double locks, is there a reason why more doors aren't being kicked in by the police?
Well, as Mr. Cook alludes to, you know, there's been a bit too much PR and kissing babies, which was his expression, not mine. And I think the police have been distracted in recent years. There's been too many dance routines by police officers. There's been too many painting of police cars in rainbow colours and flag holding by officers, just doing PR. The public don't want that. They want to be kept safe, and they want bad people locked up. Those are the core tenets of policing, and it's really not that complicated.
Yeah, and look, for police officers who, you know, like you when you were in the force, you know, really took pride in your work and enjoyed it and wanted to make the streets safer, how demoralising has the recent kind of narrative around criminal officers, the whole Wayne Couzens thing? I mean, people sort of started to look at some police officers like many people look at Catholic priests with an air of suspicion when they were supposed to be revered.
The overwhelming majority of police officers that work on the front line and will come to our aid when we dial 999 are wonderful people. There are, of course, some who sully that reputation for all of them. And yes, morale is on the floor, unfortunately, for so many police officers. But now we've got Andy Cook standing up, coming out with statements like this. I would point out that it appears to me that his tongue is a lot freer these days because he doesn't actually have a police force to lead, because he's now the inspector as opposed to being a chief constable. But this is a good thing. I hope that other chief constables will follow his lead, will speak courageously, will say to politicians, sort out the mental health services, sort out the social services, so that our police officers are not engaged on that kind of work. That is not policing. Catching criminals is.
Yeah, and just finally, does the government need to put more money into frontline policing? Do we need more police officers? That's often the criticism.
Well, yes, we do, and there's a big recruitment drive going on, but the mental health and social services, they need shaking up. They need to work out of office hours, and they need to lighten the load for our courageous cops.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.